How are we doing, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of the Big D podcast on Spunky Spectrum Sports. It is Monday. You know what that means. I am here. Alex, am here for my weekly NFL recap of the week. Before we get too far in, don't forget to stream on Spotify and Apple Music. We are streaming live, not live, but we are streaming on those two streaming sites. And as well, follow us on YouTube at the.
Spunky Spectrum Sports on the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page.
There we go. Thank you, Dylan, for the assist there. The Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Dylan pumps out great content multiple times a week. He's got some great videos on there. So subscribe to the channel, like the videos, stream on Spotify and Apple Music, and you'll be able to see our weekly videos as well as all the other videos and streams that Dylan does throughout the week. But as always, I have your host here, Dylan. Welcome to your show, Dylan, the Big D himself. How are we doing?
I'm fine, Alex. A little. Yesterday was great for my DFS teams, but not for my NFL team. I'm gonna save that rant for the end.
Yeah, daily fantasy did not treat me too well either. You got the dub over me this week. I think I took you last week. I didn't. I forgot to really gloat over that one too much last week. But you got me back. I think you beat me pretty. I was at work, so I wasn't even. I saw I was down big early, and I don't think I made much of an effort to come back, unfortunately. But
I think I beat you by almost 70 points. Thank you for
yeah.
the Renfro, Taysom Hill, Chris Godwin, and Austin Hooper.
Yeah, Austin Hooper, I remember I saw was going off for it. I wasn't too confident in my lineup this week. It was a couple tricky. I couldn't use my Jalen Waddle that I use against you every week. So once I lost Waddle, I kind of fell apart. It looked like, but not a great week for daily fantasy. Interesting week for fantasy football, and an even more interesting week in just regular football in the NFL. Some crazy games, a couple overtime games, a couple almost crazy comebacks, couple injuries. It's just this NFL season's had it all. And you know what? Let's kick this off with I think the most anticipated, or maybe not, maybe tonight's game might be up there too, but one of the most anticipated games of the week. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I think a lot of people were excited to watch this game. See, obviously Buffalo's been on a bit of a skid. Tampa Bay's been on a bit of a tear. And the game started out just like that, but Buffalo tried to make a comeback. What did you think of that game?
I felt like I was watching two different games yesterday because the first half, Tampa dominated Buffalo in every aspect. And then in the second half, particularly the last 10, 11 minutes of the game, the roles reversed. It was Buffalo doing whatever it wanted. I mean, Josh Allen was a game out there with that toe. What's with all these quarterback toe injuries? Give me a
I
break.
know.
Like quarterbacks should not have toe injuries. That should be like running backs or wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, the league's got everything for us this year. Toe injuries, I mean, COVID injuries, I guess if you want to call it that. But I mean, Josh Allen, yeah, he had the toe injury, but I mean, it didn't really seem to slow him down in the rushing game. It seemed like, I mean, 12 carries for 109 yards, a 9.1 rushing average, plus that long rushing touchdown, 23-yard longest run. I mean, Devin Singletary, he did not have much of a game. I think that.
By the way, speaking of Buffalo's rushing, guess how many rushing attempts a Bill running back recorded in the first half?
Was it zero? Because I know that they did not have a running back rush for a very long time. It was zero in the first half.
I think
I
that was
mean,
the first time that happened since 1991. I saw a tweet that said the Bills became the first team to not have a running back carry in the first half since like 1991.
yeah, I mean, honestly, Josh Allen is. I mean, move over Lamar Jackson. We might have a new king of the rushing game when it comes to quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, we've seen Josh Allen's mobility before throughout his career. I mean, it's not every guy who can hurdle a linebacker at full sprint as a quarterback. So we've seen him do that in the past, but to have a 9.1 yard rushing average, accumulate 109 yards of rushing in a football game as a quarterback. I mean, those are Lamar Jackson numbers, and not only did Josh Allen do that, but he also threw for 308 yards and 36 of 54 with 2 touchdowns on top of that. So, I mean, obviously, like you said, it was a tale of two halves. The first half, I mean, Tom Brady was Tom Brady. They completely took over that game. Second half, Josh Allen, tried to bring Buffalo back, got him to overtime, but couldn't quite finish out the job, unfortunately, for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and
But
How about Tom Brady making history twice yesterday? First, setting the NFL mark for completions. At least Mike Evans remembered the football this time.
yeah,
And then a walk-off touchdown for his 700th career touchdown pass if you count regular and postseason.
I mean, they call him the GOAT. I've finally come around to the fact that although I'm 25 years old and I didn't really see the Montanas and the Troy Aikmans and the Steve Youngs or really even the Marinos, I mean, what I've seen from Tom Brady in my 25 years on this earth, I couldn't imagine anyone has done it better than that because as I mean, I've hated to admit it for a very long time, but it's honestly just ridiculous at this point. And he's incredible. I mean, Breeshad Perriman, the only catch of his game of the game for him is a 58-yard game winner in overtime. I mean, the storylines just write themselves. It's just, I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a hot team. I mean, we were talking about last week the favorites of the NFC, and we were talking all about Green Bay and all about Arizona. I mean, Tom Brady might have something to say about that because these Tampa Bay Buccaneers look dangerous. They've got a solid rushing game. I mean, Tom Brady with a rushing game, it's almost not even fair. I mean, Leonard Fournette, 113 yards, 1 touchdown. And after his performance 2 weeks ago, that seems like mild numbers for him. I mean, it's just. I mean, even Tom Brady had a 12-yard rush. I don't know if you remember seeing that play. I mean, I remember seeing I watched the game recap and I see Tom Brady scampering around for 12 yards on 1st and 10. I'm like, what is going on? I mean, it's I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I mean, obviously this was a big test for both of these teams. They both at least have playoff intent, and both of those teams I know want to make a deep run at the playoffs. Obviously, the Bills have been struggling lately. They lost the division lead to the Patriots. But I mean, you look at the Bucs. They've got the Saints coming up, who've been struggling, although they did get Alvin Kamara back. They've got the Panthers coming up, who have not had the great year. They've got the Jets after that. We know what's going on with the Jets, and then the Panthers again in the last week of the season. I mean, it. I don't see a game on that schedule that the Bucs are going to lose. I mean, I'd be shocked if they lost any of those games. It looks like they're going to have 3 losses going into the playoffs and some hot momentum going into the playoffs too.
Here's what I see with the Bucks. You want good offensive line play? Check. You want a good rushing game? Check. Find me a better group of receivers in football. Let's see. Mike Evans, he can make plays, right?
Yeah,
Chris Godwin, not bad over the middle.
yeah,
Rob Gronkowski, Hall of Fame tight end. And Antonio Brown, if he could keep his head on straight.
right. That's the crazy thing too is Antonio Brown was having a great. He was maybe their best receiver at the beginning of the season. I mean, he was playing amazing football, and then all of a sudden he gets hurt. Then you got this weird COVID stuff going on with him, and it's like who knows if we're going to see him on the field. But if they get him back, that's just another piece that obviously Tom Brady. Tom Brady, I mean, he was giving him the ball a lot at the beginning of the season when he was on the field. If
Yeah,
he can get Antonio Brown back by the playoffs, I mean, we've been talking about the Packers and the Cardinals. I mean, this Tampa Bay team might be the team to beat in the NFC at this point.
yeah, and don't forget the defense.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
Richard Sherman had an interception yesterday. Obviously, that defensive line, the interior defensive line, is one of the best in the league. I mean, a team's got Super Bowl written all over it.
yeah, Tom Brady's only been to 1 or 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, a couple of them. It's not like he doesn't know how to get there or anything. And then on the flip side of it, you've got the Buffalo Bills who were the favorites in the AFC for a long time during the season, and they've just kind of fallen apart. I mean, they lost to the Bills last week. They lose to the Bucs this week. They beat the Saints, but the
You
Saints.
mean you mean New England?
I don't. Did I say the Bills? Yeah, they lost to the Patriots last week. They lost to the Bucks this week. They beat the Saints, but that was at one of the lowest points of the Saints in of the season. I mean, they were going really going through it in that week. They're finally starting to get healthier. I mean, at least with Kamara back. I mean, Mark Ingram's still banged up. Taysom Hill's obviously banged up. I mean, they lost to the Colts the week before that. It's been an up and down year, and they are in the down of it for the Bills. I mean, they like for the Bills. I mean, like I said, they lost to the AFC lead to the Patriots, and all of a sudden they're looking like they're fighting for a wild card spot.
I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. All the Bills choking. All the Bills choking because this. The Buffalo Bills are the best 7-6 team I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
They remind me so much of last year's Bucks. I mean, what's different between the last year's Bucks and this year's Buffalo Bills, other than that one team plays in warm weather and the other team plays in blizzards and nor'easters? They're the same team.
I mean,
Maybe a little bit, maybe
Tom
a little
Brady.
better, maybe a little better rushing game for Tampa.
Yeah,
But Josh Allen's a gamer. He's a top 5 quarterback in the league. Stephon Diggs a beast. Cole Beasley is a matchup nightmare in the slot. Dawson Knox is a red zone beast. You can't cover him. And Buffalo's got the. I mean, going into yesterday, number one, like the number one, number two scoring defense in football.
hmm
How are they 7-6? I
yeah.
mean, Buffalo is 0-5 in one possession games.
I mean, whether that comes,
Somebody explain that to me. Buffalo's 0-5 in one possession games. I know because my Jags beat them one of those games. Can't even explain it now.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if that just comes down to coaching, whether they're not. I mean, whether in crunch time on those 2 minute drills or whatever, they're not disciplined enough to really get the job done at the end of the game, or if it just comes down to unluckiness at the end of the day, I'm not sure. I mean, because like you said, I mean, they're the best 7-6 team you've ever seen. I echo that statement. I mean, obviously they've got the talent. We know the Buffalo Bills are a great team. I mean, a lot of people had the Bills in the Super Bowl at the start of the season coming out of the AFC, especially because the AFC isn't looking very strong this year. I mean, I mean, the NFC seems like where all of the best teams are right now. I mean, I'm looking ahead. I'm like, all right, so they got the Panthers next week. They should, I mean, that should be a bounce back game for the Bills. You have to assume that. They've got the Patriots the week after that, which I am very excited to watch that game because hopefully we have a Bills Patriots game that is in playable conditions because I feel like we kind of got robbed a couple weeks ago because I mean Mac Jones couldn't he threw the ball 3 times, the kickers were kicking field goals that are swinging out 60 yards past the post. I want to see that game on. I mean, obviously it's tough because it's between New England or Buffalo. You're not really getting a great weather condition in either spot of there. But hopefully it's at least a little bit more playable than it was that Monday night game. I mean, it's a 1 o'clock game, so hopefully the wind dies down. It's not too cold because I'm really interested to see how that game plays out. Like I said, I kind of feel like we got robbed a couple weeks back. And then they've got the Falcons and the Jets. So, I mean, there's definitely an opportunity for the Bills to turn this around and get some momentum going to the playoffs. It's just now's the time to do it. I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks now. It's like these teams have this is the stretch. I mean, if you're trying to get to a Super Bowl, you have to have momentum going into the playoffs. You can't limp into the playoffs because if you don't have any confidence going into that playoff game, you're going to get punched in the chin and you're not going to be able to take it.
Mark my word. I think the Bills beat New England in Foxborough.
Yeah, and I totally think they should. I mean, obviously New England's been really hot, but the Bills have been the team throughout the year until this recent just collapse. I mean, I think the Bills will win that game too, and I'm expecting them to win out. To be honest with you, and it's just a matter of getting the job done. Hopefully they've got a 2 possession game going in the last couple of minutes because it seems like they don't know how to handle those knee knockers, but it's an interest. Those two teams. I mean, we've talked about them a lot, but it was a great matchup between teams. It was a great game, and those are two of some of the most interesting teams in the NFL right now, I think. So, but I think we can move on if that's all right with you to
Yeah.
game 2 on our slate to
Yeah,
talk about.
there wasn't one overtime game yesterday. There were two. How about the San Francisco 49ers outlasting the Cincinnati Bengals 26 to 23? Jimmy Garoppolo with a late touchdown pass. Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo with a late touchdown pass. All the new ex-New England quarterbacks were throwing overtime TDs yesterday.
You know, you know. I mean, so here's a question for you, Dylan. Are you, as a result of that game, were you more impressed with the 49ers winning that game or more disappointed with the Bengals losing that
Probably more impressed with San Francisco winning because San Francisco started well. Garoppolo started well. I mean, and despite being under duress, he was playing well. And Cincinnati came back in the second half, made it a game, tied it in 20, kicked a field goal, and then Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been under constant pressure, wondering when is Trey Lance going to take his job? When will the Niners ultimately bench Garoppolo? And Jimmy G just came through with big play after big play yesterday, and by golly, he was incredible, especially that touchdown drive for finding Brandon Ayuk. I mean, Garoppolo was a game, despite being sacked 5 times, 27 to 41, 296, and a rarity with a Kyle Shanahan team. San Francisco didn't have a running game yesterday.
game? Yeah. I think obviously Elijah Mitchell being out definitely hurt that. Jeff Wilson had to step up, and I mean, fantasy players have known about the San Francisco rushing carousel. It seems like throughout the year. I think Elijah Mitchell was one of the hottest waiver wire pickups after week 1 in this season, and it's just been kind of a headache for fantasy players when it comes to Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson and who's getting hurt and who's playing and whatever. But I'm looking at like I said, I wasn't able to watch that game, but I watched the recap, and the biggest thing that really stood out to me in this game is Cincinnati turnovers. I mean, that muffed punt by the Bengals right before the half. I mean, that was a huge turning point. I mean, it gave San Francisco great field position with the opportunity to score right before the half and get some extra bonus points there. And I mean, looking at the stats, it was a pretty even game. The key stats I always look at: possession was a minute off. Um, Penalties, San Francisco actually had more penalties in that game. Another key stat I look at: third down efficiency. I mean, San Francisco 5 for 15, 5 out of 15, and the Bengals 4 to 13. Passing yards were pretty close. I mean, Cincinnati threw the ball a little bit more. Rushing yards, San Francisco had a little bit more rushing yards, but all mostly even. Really, that the biggest thing that stands out for me there is just that the two Cincinnati Bengals turnovers versus two Cincinnati Bengals turnovers versus San Francisco 49ers zero turnovers is really what stands out to me as the biggest difference, because when you've got a game statistically that close, obviously it goes to overtime, so it's obviously a close game. Turnover battle a lot of the time is what's gonna win you those games or lose you those games.
Yeah, and good news for Bengal fans. Jamal Chase finally got out of his mini funk.
Yeah, I mean, great game from Jamar Chase. He had what, 2 touchdowns, right? Uh, oh, I was looking at rushing. I was like, yeah, five for 77,
77
2 touchdowns.
and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean it's a good day for him. I mean, obviously, he's a big play. He's a big play guy. A little surprised that I mean, T. Higgins had the 114 yards. I mean, Jamar Chase did have a 32-yard catch. I think that might have been the touchdown if I remember right. But I think a big part of that game, Joe Mixon really couldn't get going. 18 carries for 58 yards. I mean, not he's been one of the top running backs in the league this year. You kind of hoping for something a little bit more, not even a little bit more. You want more out of your running back from that. I mean, obviously they've got Joe Burrow and the receivers. They've got some good connections going there, but Joe Mixon's been a big part of that offense, and he really couldn't get it going yesterday. And I think that also was something that really they need to be able to have all facets of the offense working for that Cincinnati Bengals offense. If the passing game isn't complemented by the running game, and the running game isn't complemented by the passing game, I don't think the Bengals enough of a complete team to be able to win these games without having both of those things working smoothly for them.
Yeah, because then they're not relying on Joe Burrow throwing the ball 45, 50 times. Because if you've got an even balance, I mean, Burrow threw 34 times, but if he's not having to create and it's more run pass balance, then you can have him throw a play action, get the bootleg game going.
Yeah. Oh no.
And Jamal Chase wants lunch.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Just got a phone call and I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm back now. But yeah, I mean, it's the Bengals obviously have some talent, but after talking about the Bucs and the Bills, they're obviously not. Obviously, they aren't on that status, that line. So I mean, when you have a team that has some holes, you really have to have all facets of your offense, all facets of your defense working together. Because in a game like that, I mean, both of these teams have 7-6 records after yesterday. I mean, it's an even game. It was pretty much an even game throughout, and you really have to have your playmakers step up and make some plays. And unfortunately for the Bengals, they had a couple other playmakers step up, but not all of them. And I think they need a little bit extra help to be able to get the win yesterday. But you want to anything else you want to touch on over the 49ers Bengals? I think we pretty much covered it. Instead of covering a third game this week, I think there's a game tonight that I think deserves a little bit more of our attention. We've got a great matchup. Obviously, we've got the Arizona Cardinals and the LA Rams. The LA Rams are one of the hottest teams in the NFL for a long time. The Cardinals have had a very strange season, I think it's fair to say.
How
But
can
they're
how can the Cardinals have a strange season when they're what
they're 10-2,
and
and
2?
I just think it's strange because they've done it without Kyler for so long. But okay, fine. Bad choice of words. Sorry, Dylan. But I think I think a lot of people are very excited for this game today because obviously, like you said, I mean the Cardinals are 10-2. The Rams are 8-4. It's a division rivalry game, and this could the winner of this game. I mean, obviously Arizona looks like the better team right now, but we know that the Rams have some talent. I'm really going to be interested to see. They've had some problems. Obviously, Darrell Henderson is out this week because of COVID. Sony Michel stepped up in a big way last week. Can he do it again? Is a big question. And you're shaking your head, and I think I might know the answer to that before you say a word.
I think Arizona wins this game. I'm not sure it's close.
Yeah,
Arizona won the first game. Kyler just looks like a different player right now. I mean, last week in the cold rain of against the Bears, Kyler was unstoppable. Yeah, you want him running around? Yeah. You want him throwing? Yeah. Kyler Murray is just one of those guys. I mean, he is Lamar Jackson, but probably a better passer than Lamar. He is
yeah,
a pinball who could throw the ball 70 yards down the field. And in this game, I'm not sure the Rams stop him. I don't care how well Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey play. I think Kyler's just one of those athletes capable of taking over the game. And I'm telling you, what the Arizona Cardinals did in the offseason may be the most underrated thing we've ever thing of this campaign. Because Arizona could have gone out and signed younger players, but they got men.
yeah,
James Conner, AJ Green, JJ Watt, Zach Ertz from Philly, together with DeAndre Hopkins. The Cardinals didn't need talent; they needed leaders.
hmm
We see. I mean, James Conner's what leading. I think James Conner's like one of not the lead leaguers in touchdowns this year.
hmm And he was doing that even when they had Chase Edmonds on the field.
I mean, how good of a sign would James Conner been? And AJ Green has still got some gas in the tank. Plus, I think we're finally seeing what Cliff Kingsbury can do as a head coach when he's got a quarterback fitting his scheme.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, no, I 100% agree with you. I think the Arizona Cardinals win tonight. Uh, I think it might. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I mean, it might be a 10-point game. I think would sounds about right to me. I don't know if it's. I mean, you said you don't think it'll be close. I think Arizona. I mean, the Rams have too much talent for them to get smacked around by two or three touchdowns. Even without Darrell Henderson. I mean, I know it was just the Jaguars last week, but
Don't
Sonny
remind,
Michel did.
don't remind me of last week. I'm sick and tired of that game.
Yeah, but I mean, just to back up my point, I mean, Sony Michel, although it was just against the Jaguars, he did have a great game. He showed he can step in and be the lead back on that team when Darrell Henderson's out. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is fantasy MVP this season, and he's one of the best receivers in the league this year. Matt Stafford has kind of had an up and down season, but Matt Stafford's an experienced quarterback. He knows that this is a big game. He knows that he needs to be at the best of his ability tonight against that Arizona defense, and I think Matthew Stafford will kind of strap in his chin strap and step up today. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be enough. But I think the LA Rams team is too talented to let Arizona come in and beat them by 3 touchdowns. I mean, obviously Kyler Murray has been, ever since he came back from injury, I was a little worried. No, I wouldn't say worried, but I was a little curious to see how Kyler was going to do after missing so much time. But I mean, he stepped right back in and like he had never left. So they're definitely going to have a handful with Kyler Murray. Jalen Ramsey's going to have to play lockdown, but there's only so much you can do against a quarterback like Kyler. So I definitely do see Arizona winning tonight, but I think I do think the Rams will put up a fight tonight. I think they've got too much talent not to. And, I just, with, Matthew Stafford, like I said earlier, I mean, he's an experienced quarterback. He knows this is a big game. He knows this is a division game. If the LA Rams win tonight, ne- next thing you know, they're one game behind Arizona. I mean, the season, the Ram. I keep mixing these two teams' names up. The Rams started the season hot. I mean, they were one of the a lot of people had them as their Super Bowl favorites during the first half stretch of this year. And I think that I mean just the fact that we've seen that already this year, I am confident in a good game from the Rams, and they have to know. I mean, you win tonight, you're one game back of the division. I mean, the NFC is a crazy division this year. I mean, you don't want to be going into the playoffs as a wild card team. You want to win your division. And I mean, I think that that's going to give the Rams a little extra fight tonight. I don't think it'll be enough. Like, I mean, I do have Arizona tonight, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a good football game. I think it's going to be a fun football game, and I think it's going to be maybe not close, maybe not a one possession game, but definitely not a blowout.
And remember, only one bye, so it's more important than ever to get home field throughout the playoffs. You don't want to play an NFC title game in a frigid Lambeau.
Exactly, absolutely not. So, I mean, obviously, both those teams are fighting for that tonight. It's just, I mean, it just kind of depends on which side of the coin you're on. I mean, Arizona, you want to hold that division lead. You want to hold that one seed. The Rams, you want to take that division lead. You want to take that one seed. So it's just a matter of how you look at it, and it's a matter of who wants it more tonight. I think that's really what it's going to come down to because there's obviously talent on both sides of the ball for both of these teams. It's just going to come down to game plan and execution and who wants it more. I mean, it's just, that's why they play the games. You can prep all week for a team. You can know what they do inside and out. But if you don't bring it on Sunday, and if you don't fight harder than the guy in front of you on Sunday or Monday, I guess in this case, it's not going to matter. But Dylan, I'm sorry. I'm just going to lead with that. I thought my Dolphins were having a bad year, and all of a sudden they turned it around. You know, just I'm sorry. Go on. What do you got to say about your Jacksonville Jaguars? I'm sure it's a mouthful.
I've been waiting for this rant since 4 p.m. yesterday afternoon.
All right.
Okay, let's go. What happened yesterday was pathetic. embarrassing, pitiful, whatever kind of adjective or adverb you want to hear. Look at him swear, otherwise I would say some bleeping things about. Okay. Yesterday was an incarnation of maybe the worst coaching hire we've seen since Bobby Petrino. And trust me, Atlanta Falcons know how bad Bobby Petrino was. He left.
Mm,
He left after what? 12, 13 games. Didn't even last 1 year. Didn't even last 1 year.
yeah,
Be honest, I don't think Urban Meyer should last 1 year. I don't think Urban Meyer should last more than 1 year.
yeah.
I mean, what happened with that Tom Pelissero report frustrated me. I think it annoyed the locker room. I think it annoyed everyone in there. And yesterday, I don't know what the game plan was yesterday. I'm just saying, would it help? What would be a good way of helping a rookie quarterback? I mean, would it help to run the ball? I'm just saying, like the
I'd say
Patriots.
so.
I'm just saying, the Patriots run the ball with Mac Jones, right? They run the ball pretty well with Mac Jones, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you see Justin Fields last night, especially first half against the Packers. Yeah, he looked good. He looked
yeah.
good. And did you see how many, or maybe more so, how few times Jackson ran the ball yesterday?
I did actually.
I lost count how many times Jackson ran the ball yesterday.
You
It,
lost count because it wasn't very many.
I think the Jags ran the ball
I can tell you, Jack.
8 times. 8 times.
The Jacksonville Jaguars ran the ball 8 times for 8 total yards yesterday.
That yeah, that would be 1 yard a carry. 1 freaking yard for every time we run the dang ball. What are we doing running the ball 8 times? 8 times! You and I could run the ball 8 times on Madden for Pete's sake.
I I didn't know. I knew the Jaguars lost 20-0, but seeing that stat, 8 rushes for 8 yards, that has got to be one of the most laughable stats I think I've ever seen.
I'm just
I,
saying, James Robinson last year was a 1,000 yard rusher as a rookie. Where in the bleep has James Robinson gone? I don't care if he fumbled the last couple of weeks. You know what? Tiki Barber fumbled, and the Giants gave him the ball. Ezekiel Elliott fumbled, and the Cowboys gave him the ball. Alvin, Alvin Kamara fumbles, and the Saints give him the ball. Christian McCaffrey fumbles, and the Panthers still give him the ball. Leonard Fournette fumbles and the Bucs still give him the ball, at least when he's not in Bruce Arians' doghouse. And James Robinson fumbled and he didn't see the field for what? Like half the game. If James Robinson's the best offensive player you have, put him on the field. I don't care if he fumbles. Put him on the field. Put him on the field. I don't care if he coach at Colorado or Ohio State. He's not Ezekiel Elliott. He's not Ezekiel Elliott. Hell, he might not even be better than the running backs Ryan Day's got in Columbus right now.
How about the running game obviously was atrocious, probably the worst I've ever seen for an NFL team. The Buffalo Bills didn't run the ball once in the first half. You told me earlier today. I mean, at least you ran the ball in the first half. The only difference is Josh Allen had multiple runs longer than the total yardage of rushing that the Jaguars had yesterday. But not to dig that cut a little deeper, but I want to switch it over to Trevor Lawrence really quick. 4 interceptions. Was that a case of forcing things, being not having a score, or was that just bad quarterback play from Trevor Lawrence?
I think I was a bit of everything. Bad coaching, bad game plan execution. Of course, Mike Vrabel's a great defensive coach. I mean, he's fooled a lot of the great ones. He's fooled Andrew Luck. He's fooled Deshaun Watson. Hell, he fooled Tom Brady in a playoff game.
Yeah. It's
But
true.
you cannot have a rookie quarterback stand back there and throw the ball 40 times with no running game and in a hostile environment, especially against a really competent coach. Give me a break. Trevor Lawrence, the best college quarterback to come in the NFL since Peyton Manning or maybe Andrew Luck.
Yeah,
And right now, he's regressing while all these young quarterbacks are getting better.
it's true.
Ugh.
And I think the craziest thing for me is looking at least just statistically looking at this game, the Titans didn't really do much.
I mean,
I mean, they had a hunt.
by the way, speaking of Titans, did you see what led the Titans receiving yards
Yeah,
yesterday? It wasn't
and
AJ Brown. It wasn't Julio Jones. It was
that's
Jeff
where I was going
Swain.
with this. That's exactly where I was going with this. Jeff Swaim, 3 catches for 45 yards as the leading receiver. Yes, they rushed 102 yards, but it took them 5 players to get to 102 yards. I
No,
mean, their leading rusher was Devonta Foreman, 13 for 47. Tannehill had 29, McNichols had 16, and Hillard had 13. Then you look at the receiving. Swaim had 3 for 45. That's their leading receiver. That's not a very good game. Fursker, 4 for 34. Julio, 4 for 33. Westbrook Kind, 3 for 31. I mean, I'm looking at Chester Rogers had a fumble. He didn't lose it, but he still fumbled the ball. I mean, Tannehill, 20 of 31, 191 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 4 sacks. I mean, the Titans did not play a great football game
and
yesterday.
yet they shut us out.
And yet,
I mean, be honest. I'm not sure it will happen now. I want Urban Meyer gone. I want him gone. I'm like, I don't even care who the. I'm like, I want him gone, because Jacksonville's got 2 winnable games the next couple of weeks. We've got the pitiful Texans and the equally pitiful Jets before we're going to get massacred by the Patriots and
Colts. Yeah, that's exactly. You've been reading my mind today. That's exactly where I was going next. Is that the Jaguars have the Texans and the Jets coming up. I mean, you can't be confident going into either of those games because you shouldn't be confident going into any game this season. I don't care who you're playing. But if you have a chance to win another football game after the ridiculous win you had over Miami,
Okay, really?
um, you got the Texans and the Jets. Those are two of the teams. If you could hand pick 2 teams to have next on your schedule, those are probably the 2 teams you're picking. If the Jaguars are bad, we know that, but the Texans are bad and the Jets are bad. If one of what do you think would need to happen for Urban Meyer to get fired? Lose both? Lose one?
It's not whether you win or lose, it's whether the team competes. And be honest, I don't think the team's competing.
Yeah,
I mean, you see with the Lions, they might lose 38-10, and they're playing their butts off every Sunday.
yeah. That's true. It's just honestly, I feel bad for you. Obviously Urban Meyer. I've had a love and hate relationship growing up as a Gators fan. When he walked off to go to Ohio State, that hurt a lot of Jaguars fans. He's I wouldn't be surprised. He's had so much drama and not the good kind this year. Obviously, his team is in shambles. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence isn't really improving. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if Urban Meyer. I don't even know if they'd fire him. I wouldn't be surprised if Urban Meyer just decides he's had enough because that just kind of seems to be the kind of guy he is. Unfortunately, I mean, he seems to walk away from any uh, stress or bad situation he might be in. So I feel bad for you as a Jaguars fan. I know the rant might have made you feel a little bit better. I know it sure did when Miami was on our big losing streak. But on the bright side, you've got 2 games coming up that you have a good opportunity to make something happen in. So I wish you luck in those. I think that's about all the time we've got. Any last words from you, Dylan? Or
That was a good stress reliever.
good. That's what we're here for. That's what our Sunday or our Monday recap rants are here for. But thank you for thank you everyone for tuning in. If you made it this far, hopefully you did. It's definitely a rant you wouldn't want to miss. I have to give a big shout out and thanks to Dylan, the Big D himself, for having me on. It's been a pleasure as always.